It's January 28th, 2026. We're here for the Franklin County Commissioners meeting. I will now call the meeting to order, and please join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Good call.
Hey, normally, you guys been remembering. Today is the first time you all sit down. So. Anyways, I'm Chaplain Gordon Walsh, and I'm the chaplain here at Franklin County. So I'm going to pray. I'm a Christian, so I believe in Jesus, and I pray in Jesus' name. If you are of a different faith, just pray with us and pray how you would pray. We want to invite everybody to pray, okay? So, Lord Father, we just come to you on this day. We ask that your will be done here with the commissioners and within Franklin County, Lord. We just ask for protection over our community right now where the roads are pretty icy, Lord, that everybody's able to drive safely. We ask that all the work that needs to be done here is done efficiently and done for the benefit of our community, Lord. And we ask for just an anointing over the commissioners and all the leaders here to be able to do their work well and do it with honor and integrity. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. And thank you for taking the time to come in here and pray with us. We do appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Adoption of current agenda. Do we have any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the agenda as presented.
We don't need to move that workshop?
You know what? On a withdraw my motion to approve as presented, I would ask that we follow up the second public comment period and put our workshop at that point in the meeting. We do have need of an executive session today, and that way that the people that are coming for this workshop on the Rural Prosperity Summit, that way that they don't have to wait on us. So I would move that we amend our agenda and adopt it with the exception of the workshop be moved to just after the second comment period.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name, and have 3 minutes.
Morning, Commissioners. So I just want to come brief before you and just ask for your support on this House bill that's coming up. It's going to be heard this Friday. It's House Bill 2094. What it is to do away with the elect office of a coroner. They're coming after the sheriff's office. Now they're coming after the coroner's office, and so I'd ask for your support on that. This is sponsored by two people out of District 14, out of Yakima, which comes down here into Pasco. And so we just ask for your support on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you for bringing that forward.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. McGarry, I am right now, I have you and our contract lobbyist in an email draft. Would that be okay if I introed you to, and then maybe you could provide information to him?
Yeah, that'd be great. I was over there Monday and visited with Senator Torres, Representative Clickert, and Connors, and had a good visit with them too. And they're all in opposing of this bill as well. I've talked to Binky and Bernard, and they're in favor of opposing this bill too. So,
What's the purpose of it?
their primary purpose was, I don't know if you're familiar with the coroner situation in Yakima County. That's where it's stemming from, and they're thinking that by appointing the coroner it would save funds, when in the long run it would not, because of the training that the coroner's office goes through. You know, a lot of deputy coroners, because of their grades, they're almost, some of those are making more than the coroner's office, the coroner himself. So if you take that away, that's going to increase cost. We have a, their whole thing was just trying to get that coroner out of office. Well, you have a process. It's called the recall. If people would just exercise their right to do the recall, that would have taken place earlier. They ended up, bargaining with the coroner to have him step down. But so none of us are in favor of what that coroner did up there. No one condones what he did. So that's what it stems from. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the room for public comment? Anyone on the phone? All right. Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to the approval of the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of consent agenda items 1 through 4 as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Regular business, presentation, updates on the Shoreline Ray Convenience. Carl Dye, President and CEO of TriDeck, and David Replong, Vice President for Federal Programs, TriDeck. Good morning. Good morning. Sorry if I didn't get your name right. I don't have my glasses, so it was a little bit of guesswork there.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, it's good to see everybody again this morning. Thanks for welcoming us over. This Shoreline Reconveyance has been going on. I've been here 6 years now, and so since I've been here, and then David will give you a little history on the background of it. We wanted to do this update. Commissioner Baumann has joined us in some of our meetings. Brian's been in a couple. We just want to give this to the whole board. We're kind of at a point in the process with all the jurisdictions where we're out coming to public meetings and starting to talk about that. At this point, we've worked on it at the staff level generally, kind of got it to the point where it is. And, we just look forward to having an open discussion with the board about what the board's intentions are or, wishes in moving forward in this process, and realizing since we started on the process, there's a lot of different faces here. And so if there's a different direction, we're totally open to that direction from the Franklin County Commissioners. David Replog is our Vice President of Federal Programs. He's really led this initiative for us. And so I'm going to turn it over to David to give you kind of that background and then bring you up to speed on where we're at, and then have a discussion. Thank you.
All right, again, good morning, Commissioners. It's good to be with you again this morning. So I'd like to start off just by providing some background. As Carl said, there are a couple, I think, new commissioners since the last time I spoke with you all about the Shoreline Reconveyance. So a little bit of background first. Since the Treaty of 1855 between the United States government and the regional tribes, the land has been sort of, the shoreline land in the Tri-City area has evolved to the point where by the mid-1900s, 1940, 1945, the vast majority of the Tri-City area shoreline was in private ownership on both sides of the river, a lot of farms, ranches, homes, maybe some businesses in the area. But then in the late 1940s and early 1950s, there was a series of massive floods along the Columbia River. You all have probably heard of the former city of Vanport that just got destroyed during those floods. And the shoreline here in the Tri-Cities also got destroyed during the floods. And so in the early 1950s, the Army Corps of Engineers came in and primarily through purchase, but also in some cases through condemnation, took ownership of the shoreline, both in Franklin County and in Benton County, and have owned it ever since. Since then, they've installed a series of massive kind of flood control infrastructure. We all are familiar with the levee system that's along the river, as well as pumps and flowage easements and things like that. But also since then, probably about a dozen dams have been built either upstream or downstream of the Tri-Cities. And so the flood risk, because of those dams being in place now, the flood risk to our community is really minimal. And frankly, our flood control infrastructure is really overbuilt for what that risk is today. So that's kind of the way it was from the 50s until the mid-1980s. And in the case of the cities in Benton County, the local governments had leases with the Corps of Engineers to operate the Corps land as parks For example, Chiawana, Wade, Columbia Parks are all on Army Corps-owned land, but the cities of Pasco and Kennewick have leases with the Corps to operate the parks. We estimate that right now, collectively, the local governments are spending about $2 million a year to maintain and operate this federal land for public parks. And in the mid-1980s, Benton County was leasing Columbia Park from the Corps, and it's kind of $2 million. It's kind of expensive to maintain and operate these parks. The county at the time just couldn't keep paying it, and so they came back to the Corps and said, we really just can't keep doing this. And the Corps said, well, we don't have the resources either. We can't do it. And so ultimately, you're either going to have to figure something out, or we're going to padlock Columbia Park. And so at that time, the city of Kennewick decided to take it over because obviously the parks throughout our community are important assets for public benefit and recreation. And so the city of Kennewick took it over then. But that was at a time when some of you might recall Brad Fisher. He was the mayor of Kennewick at the time, just passed away a few years ago. But he was the mayor of Kennewick at the time. And that experience began kind of the conversation amongst the community about, is federal ownership of these parks and the shoreline really the best approach today, now that there are these dams in place and the flood risk is really minimized? And that led to, ultimately, in the 1996 Water Resources Development Act, or WRDA bill, Congressman Hastings at the time got legislation passed that authorized the Army Corps to transfer the shoreline land to the local governments. But it also requires going through the full federal regulatory process first, including completion of the National Environmental Protection Act, or NEPA, analysis. And that's kind of where things stayed for another 15 or so years. About 10 years ago, the city of Kennewick began pursuing the transfer of about 72 acres of land in Columbia Park under that 1996 WRDA, Water Resources Development Act authority. And 10 years later, it's still not done, and it's cost them about $1 million, maybe a little less than $1 million, because, again, you have to go through that full regulatory process. And when we look at the entirety of the shoreline in the Tri-Cities, if it took 10 years and about $1 million for just 72 acres, we just know it's not feasible to pursue the entire shoreline transfer using the existing authority. And also about 10 years ago, then former Mayor Brad Fisher, along with recently former Congressman Doc Hastings, and my predecessor at TRIDEC, Gary Peterson, along with the mayor of Kennewick at the time, Steve Young, began kind of reigniting the conversation about, should we pursue additional congressional legislation that would transfer ownership of the shoreline, but not require the NEPA and some of the other federal regulatory requirements to be done first. Over time, and that's when I think Franklin County began kind of getting involved in that conversation, and then that evolved to, around 2020, early 2021, we began at TRIDEC working with the local governments to engage in a dialogue with the tribes. Like I mentioned, the Treaty of 1855 was signed between, there were multiple treaties, but the ones that are most relevant here were between the United States and the Yakama Nation, and Franklin County side of the river is the Yakama Nation ceded territory, and then the Benton County side is the ceded territory of the Confederated Tribes of the Umatilla Indian Reservation. And so we began, we put together what we call the Shoreline Reconveyance Working Group, and that consists of representatives from Franklin County, City of Pasco, Port of Pasco, cities of Richland and Kennewick, and Benton County, and then TRIDEC. And so that working group began primarily engaging, we invited both tribes. We initially began really with engaging with the Umatilla tribes, and then more recently, in the last couple of years, the Yakama Nation have become actively involved as well. But ultimately, what we learned from the tribes is that there's an established relationship and understanding of how the federal government is supposed to interact with tribes and its role in ensuring that treaty rights and cultural resources are protected. And so as we look at potentially legislation that would transfer ownership out of the federal government, they want to ensure that those treaty rights and cultural resources are protected into the future. And when we've looked at this legislation, again, what we're asking for is that essentially they that Congress would authorize or direct the transfer of the land without having to do the NEPA first, and instead, in the future, if a project is considered for some development on, say, like a 5-acre parcel somewhere in the Tri-Cities, you do the normal process that we do anyway, like the State Environmental Policy Act, SEPA process. And in talking with congressional offices, Congressman Newhouse has volunteered to champion this effort, but also talking to Senator Murray, Senator Cantwell, and others as well. They've really emphasized how important it is that that we all kind of come together and speak with one voice between the tribes and the local governments, that we're not going to be successful if we don't have all the parties kind of on the same page. And so really, again, that's what we've been working at doing for the last several years. It's been taking a lot of effort, but I think we're really close to getting there. Again, it's been a while. There's a number of new faces at Franklin County since this kind of initially came up. But previously, this next slide shows the land that Franklin County has identified as being interested in having transferred. And this is basically from the Franklin County limit with the city of Pasco to the south there, up, and then the next map shows the shoreline going all the way north to essentially the Hanford Reach National Monument is all owned by the Corps, and it's just really kind of a sliver of land between the ordinary high water mark, kind of the floodplain point, up to somewhere landward from the river. And so previously that was what the county had identified as being interested in having transferred back. And part of what we'd like to do here today with you is to kind of update you on where things are at, but also hopefully get some input from the commissioners on if that's still the approach that the county would like to take. And before we get into that, the last thing I would mention is that right now where we're at is that the Shoreline Reconveyance Working Group has put together a framework of agreements that would be signed or agreed to by all the participating local governments as well as the tribal elected bodies. That would include a memorandum of agreement, cultural practices easement, and ground disturbing protocols. And essentially, the intent of these is, one, to develop just a relationship between the local governments and the tribal governments where there's communication and shared understanding of how the shoreline would be managed and operated, but also to ensure that those cultural resources and treaty rights would still be in place just to ensure that everybody understands where things are at. And so, again, right now we're at the point where we're talking with all of the local elected bodies about the process and where we're at. And for those that want to pursue the legislation, then we're at the point where it's time to kind of start considering and eventually, hopefully, agreeing to this memorandum of agreement and the other documents. And then we work with Congressman Newhouse and other members of our delegation to pursue legislation this year. And so I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to add, Carl, but ultimately, and I talked briefly with Brian Danzel yesterday too, or a couple days ago, and hoping to get input from you all on what your thoughts about the process are, if the county is still interested in these lands, and to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions?
I think we're definitely interested. Did it take an act of Congress to get this Corps of Engineers in place?
To get it in place?
Yeah, with the control of those lands. Was it an act of Congress? Was it a bill that was passed, or did a president do it?
I believe an administration did it. I think it was executive action.
So then I think that we have the right president, and I think we have a direct avenue with Mr. Danzel, who was in his first administration. We could probably get him to get in touch with somebody and maybe get this ball rolling a little faster. But yes, I think we are very much interested because, like you said, the dikes were built. We've got the dams, provided that they don't breach the dams. If they start breaching dams, we're going to have a problem. We're going to be right back to the same problem that we had back when Vancouver flooded. Mm-hmm. So I think we definitely can get Mr. Danzel in somebody's ear back there. He knows a lot of people back there, and maybe get this ball rolling a little faster. Because we do have a workshop today with the USDA Rule Prosperity Summit. I mean, we got them coming in our backyard here
Yeah.
coming up. So this is a good opportunity. And I think the time is right.
Thank you for coming. Some of this I already know, and you already know that I know, but for the benefit of having this discussion, would you share a little bit more about this cultural practices easement that has been going on for so long? And for full transparency, for where I stand on this, I'm frustrated that it's taking so long. The Corps of Engineers is difficult to get a hold of. They're difficult to work with. I say that both as a county commissioner and as a developer that has worked on this in the past. And the Corps of Engineers is not fulfilling their statutory obligation on the lands that they are supposedly managing. And that is best demonstrated. You can see it if you go look at the Levee Landing Park. The Corps of Engineers made a agreement with the public whenever they put the dams in and whenever they took over that they would provide recreational opportunities. And the burden has fallen on local jurisdictions to pay for and manage the lands that the Corps own that they do not manage themselves. And so, like Commissioner Didier, I think the answer to your question is a resounding yes, we want these lands. However, I'm frustrated with how long it's taken. So to my question a little bit more closely, would you tell us a little bit more about the cultural practices easement that has been worked on so much by so many of us? And then is there anything that is in that cultural practices easement that benefits the local jurisdictions specifically? And is there anything that the Treaty of 1855 does not address that is in that cultural practices easement? So that's a lot, so feel free to unpack that if you will.
Sure. And I'm going to maybe pull that document up again, or that slide up again. So as I mentioned earlier, the Shoreline Working Group, primarily for the first few years was the Umatilla tribe was involved, but not the Yakimas. They were invited. They just took a while for them to begin participating. And before they did, we had sort of established this framework. We called it.
Will you talk into the mic a little closer, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Called it a three-legged stool of the Memorandum of Agreement, the ground disturbing protocols, which is essentially how you would coordinate if you have to dig up a sprinkler line or whatever, which is already something that has to be done, but today you have to go through the Corps and they have to do their process, and so it short circuits that process and saves time and money. But those two, the MOA, the ground disturbing protocols, and then the legislation. When the Yakimas got involved, they wanted to also include this cultural practices easement. And essentially what it does is it attaches kind of to the land this recognition that the tribes can still do their cultural practices, and primarily that takes the form of access for fishing, gathering, and things like that on any parcel of land that's included in the easement. Now, as they've explained it to us on multiple occasions, these treaty rights that were established in the Treaty of 1855, they weren't granted by the United States governments, they were retained. They call them treaty reserved rights, and essentially, as it is right now, the treaty allows tribal members access to hunt, fish, gather, and things like that anywhere within the ceded territories. It gets a little bit more complicated than that, but generally speaking. And so from my perspective, what the easement does is it essentially just memorializes that in the form of an easement, but it doesn't necessarily change what would otherwise still be something that the tribal members could do if they so chose. That being said, they could do all of those things today if they wanted to, and we don't have tribal members for the most part going through people's backyard to hunt or fish or anything like that. But it's just something that it is really important to the tribes, and they wanted to ensure that was again memorialized and attached to the land.
Yeah, and I don't, having not read the entire thing, but dug into it pretty deep. I appreciate that your description is that it's memorializing something that already exists. my disappointment or frustration or impatience, I guess, is that it's taking so long to do this. And, you know, having been at quite a number of these meetings and seeing the number of people that are there, the effort that is being expended primarily by you guys, thank you for your hard work on that. But how do we guarantee this process is going to not take another 30 years? Because the last action, Congress said that yes, they would do this, but we needed to go through a process. That was 30 years ago, and 30 years is too long. And so I'm in favor of continuing if we don't have just an open-ended thing. I've been at those meetings when they were supposed to bring back information that they did not because they weren't working on it. And it seems that we are working harder than they are, so to speak. And so more specifically, this cultural practices easement, is there any advantage whatsoever to any of the local jurisdictions for this?
I don't know that there's an advantage to the local governments, but I don't think that there's necessarily a disadvantage either. The advantage, if you call it that, is that, as again, the members of our congressional delegation have shared with us, what we're asking for is for Congress to transfer this land to the local governments at no cost and without requiring NEPA first, which is not something that Congress does very much, if ever. So we're already kind of asking for something that's unique. And the only way that we're going to be successful is if we have the tribes and the local governments all on the same page. And so, again, the easement is important for the tribes, and I don't think it necessarily disadvantages the local governments, and so it's a way to move the process forward. And I completely agree with you. The process has taken a long time, and especially with the introduction of the easement, that added another layer of complexity. And as you know, we meaning TRIDEC and the local governments came together to hire an outside law firm with expertise in both tribal law and real estate law, and that has really kind of now sped things up again, which is good. And I think we are at the point where, you know, the CTUIR Board of Trustees was briefed recently. We had a shoreline reconveyance working group meeting just yesterday where the Yakimas talked about potentially next month getting this in front of their tribal council. So there's no guarantees, but it seems like we've picked up some real momentum, and we're also going to be submitting a request to Congressman Newhouse's office for the Water Resources Development Act legislation that's coming up this year, probably by today or tomorrow. And so the snowball is starting to roll down the hill.
So I having read, being pretty familiar with it, I am in favor of trying to move it forward as presented, with the exception of a timeline. I would like them to commit to a timeline that we're going to, because I've watched how hard you've been working. I've been a commissioner for 2 years, and the ball hasn't really moved in 2 years. It has a little bit. We've got, you know, we've done a few things, but it's just not really moving. And so if we want to do the hard work and get it done, I'm in favor of that. But to just continue for another 6 years, I'm not in favor of that.
I might add, Commissioner Baumann, Congressman Newhouse's announcement that he's not running for re-election has, I think, helped us in hastening the process with the tribal partners. I think they understand it like we do. It's like, if he's going to be the person that carries legislation forward, we've only got the rest of this year, and that's it. You know, we don't know who's going to replace him. We don't know where they're going to go. I think to Commissioner Didier's point about the current administration, now's the time to get this done. And I think that conversation actually has been, to the degree that staff and, you know, some tribal council members, they're all going through elections right now, and we could talk a lot more about their truly democratic process. Like, you know, I'll let that go. But we understand and we hear clearly what you're saying, but we feel confident that this is the time for the reasons that David just laid out. I mean, we're in economic development, right? So we're always overly optimistic, but I think that's the best gauge that we can give you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
I don't think that Congressman Newhouse's name's best one to be putting with this paper to go to before the Trump administration. There's ill feelings between them. That's what has happened in the past. That's why I'm asking that maybe Mr. Danzo look for another lead to connect the counties with somebody. We want this to happen. And if President Trump sees Newhouse's name next to it, he probably is not even going to look at it. That's the problem we have.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly an opportunity to pursue executive branch action. We'd of course want to do that in coordination with the tribes as well. But what we're looking at, where Congressman Newhouse will be directly involved, as well as our senators and potentially also the chairs of the Armed Services Committee or the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, is legislation that would work through Congress where it wouldn't necessarily require the president to weigh in one way or the other. And this would be an amendment that's attached to another larger piece of legislation like the Water Resources Development Act or the National Defense Authorization Act. But your point is very well taken, Commissioner.
And that's why I asked you at the beginning if this was a Congress passed bill, or was it a president executive order? And I think you said it was an executive order, so we can unravel this with an executive order. We don't have to go through Congress, correct?
So Congress already passed legislation with Doc that said, give them the land back.
Right.
And so that's been sitting there. So that's
already been done.
it's already been done. So Commissioner, what we'll do is follow up with Mr. Danzel to take your direction under advisement. And then if there's a modification to the direction we're going, we're completely open to that. Our goal is to get it done.
Thank you. Ours too.
I just, one last thing, just for people to appreciate just how difficult it is. In the recent past, the city of Kennewick, in working on some of these areas that would be subject to this reconveyance, it cost them $6,000 to replace a sprinkler head that you and I can go over to Lowe's and get for about $28, and it'll take us about 30 minutes to change out, and it cost them $6,000. That's the kind of ridiculousness that frustrates our community and frustrates me. And so happy to help push, but we need to make real progress. And so you've got my support. Let's make it move.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Probably besides $6,000, it might have taken them up to 2 months to get the approval.
Good point.
dig a
Good
hole.
point. Yeah, it wasn't, we didn't fix it this afternoon. We had to go ask for permission to fix a sprinkler on ground that had already been disturbed, and that is evident because there's a sprinkler there. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you for the information. Thank you for coming in today, and appreciate all the hard work you've done on this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It's good to see you.
Moving on to Resolution 2026-030, Planning and Economic Development Planning Commission Member Appointment for Joel Anthony Prantle, presented by Wes McCart, Franklin County Director of Planning and Economic Development. Welcome this morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. With the resignation of Melinda Didier to the Planning Commission, that left us a vacancy. We advertised for that vacancy and we got one applicant, and that's Mr. Joel Prantle. And so he's here today for you guys to ask any questions and consider his appointment. You have a draft resolution in front of you if you so choose to appoint. Mr. Prantle, can you come up, please?
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Questions?
I know Mr. Prantle. He's an upstanding citizen, and I welcome him to the board.
Thank you.
Same remarks. So
Thank you.
appreciate your willingness to come forward and serve on the.
Thank you for your willingness to serve in our community. I think it'd be good. Tell us who Joel is and what
Well, we've
serving
been
on the
here,
commission would mean.
Grandfather moved here in '54, started farming, and we've been here a long time. I've been here for over 50 years. My parents come from the Willamette Valley and moved up here. Dad's passed away 3 years ago, but Mom's doing okay. She's in the hospital this week, or otherwise I was supposed to be on vacation last week and this week. But everything's going well at home. I live just north of Pasco, 10 miles. run business there, and I run a lot of long haul as well in the last couple of years, taking produce all the way to Texas and then bringing other stuff back. And so, and we got 12 employees out there on the farm and doing the model trains and all the parts and pieces of all that, because we manufacture a little bit. So, happy to serve the county in this vacancy, and would love to have everybody say yes to let's move forward on it.
Well, thank you for your service to our county. For the benefit of our community, Joel runs the largest model train shop in the world. We have it located in Franklin County.
Yep.
And I remember probably when I was maybe 4, 5, 6 years old is probably the first time that I visited your model train shop and met your mom and dad, and have been there many times. And thank you for your willingness to serve our community, and look forward to voting on this today.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move for Resolution 2026-030 for the passage of Resolution 2026-030.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes unanimously. Welcome, Mr. Prantle.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Congratulations.
your
Thank you.
willingness to serve. Thank you.
And Commissioners, I do want to thank you. That gives us a full planning commission, and with the amount of work we got in front of us between now and the end of the year, I'm going to need all hands on deck. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCart. Commissioner Administrator updates. Commissioner Bauman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last week, I left our commissioners' meeting here and pretty rapidly got in my car and headed for the west side. And I've kind of gotten the timing down where that I know exactly when I have to leave in order to make it in time. Because if you miss it by 15 minutes, you'll hit the traffic and it's just a nightmare. So I traveled to Olympia last week and partook in a couple of days of meetings at WASAC with the Legislative Steering Committee. The first meeting was with the Washington Department of Health Director, Mr. Worsham, and he gave us updates on his new position as the director of that agency. And it was good discussion. There was discussion about vaccine mandates and just some of the conversation surrounding counties and their interface and communication with the Department of Health. And the primary thing that was said by not only myself, but a lot of our counterparts was the Department of Health needs to work diligently to build trust with counties and with our local health districts. There was numerous examples given back during COVID. The messages coming out of the Department of Health was follow the science, but then the Department of Health would not provide the science with which they said that they were following. And so there was a robust discussion around that, and Mr. Worsham ensured that he was willing to work hard and to do that, and said he would be happy to visit any and all of our local health districts. And so I was appreciative of his attitude and his approach to that. Had the roundtable after that meeting where the commissioners just sit around and have discussion. We did kind of go county by county, and we discuss what issues counties are having and those with experience with dealing with those issues. I gave a report on our jail, and it was at that meeting a year ago when I asked them the question and asked for advice, where that I said, I believe it may be necessary for us to take over the administration of our jail and ask for advice, and so kind of gave them a report on that, and then the bill updates and the reports from staff, extensive hours and hours of meetings on legislative updates, the good bills, the bad bills, and everything in between. Multiple meetings with our administrator, with our facilities, meetings with Had a very productive meeting with one of our counterparts across the river, Commissioner Alvarez, and talked in detail about the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery and the finances and the questions that I've been asking. Very much appreciate Commissioner Alvarez providing that information and a little bit more information that he is working on, and felt like that was very productive and made a lot of headway there. Attended virtually the meeting that was held in Kennewick at the school about the level 3 sex offender house that is being sited right within a residential neighborhood, and the grave concerns that the entire community, people from as far away as Prosser was there, Connell, all over our region and our communities, having that discussion. And it's a level 3 house, which is the highest level of sex offenders, and their concern, the community's concern, and certainly my concern. The recidivism rate that the state publishes about a level 3 sex offender is that 77% of level 3 sex offenders will reoffend. And so that particular house that's sited within a residential neighborhood is a five individual house. There'll be 5 men there, and with a 77% recidivism rate, that means at minimum 3 will reoffend. And it's sited right within a residential neighborhood. It's completely not acceptable. I did appreciate that some of the state officials that oversee that evaluate those houses was there and answered questions. There was some filibustering of questions to some level. However, appreciated that they were there. The crowd was very robust. I don't know, there was hundreds and hundreds of people there. I don't know the number, but it was very extensive. I appreciated the police chief from Kennewick was there and kind of moderated to a level. Appreciated him doing that. Appreciated all the people that shared their concerns, from a 16-year-old girl that lives a few houses down to a lady that had lived there more than 60 years, and all of the people in between. The house was purchased by an individual on the west side of the state, and the individual that is going to run this house runs a house currently in Walla Walla and is intending to run this house, and the community was very concerned with a lot of different things. Have already spoke to a legislator. By the way, our legislators, our senator from the 15th, Ms. Torres, Senator Binky, Representatives Barnard and Connors was there virtually. They're in Olympia, but they were there on Zoom call. They asked lots of questions. They are working on legislation about this very, very issue. And so our staff here, I've visited with them about it. They are already working on it as far as addressing what this might look like. Legally, we cannot prevent this from coming into our neighborhoods as the law stands today. However, as a Board of County Commissioners, we do have some authority on locations, and so I'm reading up and learning about that, and our staff is working on that as well, and would encourage you commissioners to engage in this. And I think it's something that we should address before somebody announces that they're going to cite something like this in our communities. Multiple meetings at the Hapo Center, and I believe today the regional chamber has a luncheon there at the Hapo Center. And so just appreciate the hard work the staff is doing. It was fun going to the Sportsman Show this last weekend. I always enjoy that. And with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my report.
Thank you. Administrator, Mr. Danzel.
I have to apologize. I was on the phone with our legal counsel, and so just coming back from that. I had the opportunity to meet with some of the fellows here in the audience for just a little bit, David and Carl, regarding the shoreline conveyance. I met with McKinstry to go over the Phase 2 review with Jen in our office. They are going to be here next week to do a workshop and to discuss the progress or where they're at and what the whole entire scope looks like. I had a series of meetings with Amanda Isom to discuss future recruitments and potentially also, if we have to, standing up areas that we don't currently have. And then met with Comprehensive Health to discuss whether Franklin County would like to contract with them. We have a secondary meeting set up here in the near future. Obviously, gentlemen, worked with all three of you throughout the week to not only go over the agenda, but when other issues arose, and I felt the need to inform you of things that were taking place at the county. And finally, and this is, I think you guys are going to really appreciate this, I'd like to introduce Edgar Vega. He is our new juvenile probation counselor and services coordinator. And I didn't know if it was proper to have him introduce himself, but he's already put together a plan and a vision for our juvenile services department. I'd like to send that down, and I think it's indicative of the kind of person that we got on our team. So Edgar, welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Edgar Vega. Like Brian said, I'm the new juvenile probation counselor. I just wanted to introduce myself to you guys and let you guys how appreciative I am for your guys' trust towards me. And like Brian said, I did come up with this plan and stuff before I even started here. So this was kind of like off the books type of thing, because I want to get this ball rolling as fast as possible. Like I've said before, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We just want to make a wheel that's functional, that serves our community the best possible way. If that means borrowing spokes from other counties and creating something, that's what I plan on doing. You guys have any questions for me?
I just want to say welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. That's it's refreshing. I look forward to working with you and having you handle our juvenile.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Didier.
Yes, so last week consisted of the Board of Health meeting, Columbia River Policy Advisory Group meeting, WorkSource Executive Board meeting, and then the board meeting. Then I want to report a little bit more on this meeting. I had somebody attend for me and reported on some additional information here that I think would be very privy for us to know about, and that is the registered property owner is a couple that owns this property, but the person that'll be running it is Mr. Joe Fields, doing business as JPL Transition. Mr. Fields also holds licensing in Minnesota, which is being flagged for awareness and due diligence purposes given recent compliance and fraud issues reported in that state involving similar housing and transitional service models. So I think that this really needs to be delved into and looked at, because this is a clear indicator of what they're trying to set up here in Kennewick. Also, I'd like to report on the King's Ranch up north that has been attacked by the Washington Department of Ecology. Brooks Rollins, who is our lead person on the EPA, she is weighing in on it as the EPA director of this area, Emma Pokin, adding criticism to the Department of Ecology for their handling of this situation. And it seems like that this may get resolved fairly quickly now, because we've got the EPA involved, and the Department of Ecology in this state needs to be reeled in. They're out of control. There's problems up in Spokane. There's problems in other area that they're actually seizing the property or taxing them to the point they got to sell. So this is refreshing news. Also, I got a phone call and a text from an individual here in Franklin County, and I don't see anybody from the sheriff's office here today, but hopefully they're listening. This gentleman has asked to get his concealed weapon permit, and he was told the earliest appointment for fingerprinting for this would be in May, and the next one, or actually March, and the next appointment wouldn't be till May. And these are services that our county needs to offer immediately. This isn't a big deal. They need to get the guy fingerprinted so that he can be given a concealed weapon permit if he's eligible for it. And I'd just like to say welcome to Edgar. It's good to have you here in Franklin County, sir. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Last week, we did have the health department meeting. Public comment concerns were the rats in Richland. But unless there are complaints of, debris or trash or anything that would cause the rats to come in, they really have no jurisdiction over that. They are working with the local police to try to curtail the unlicensed food vendors. It creates a food safety concern with no oversight with their operations when they have no permits, no license, no inspections. The winter weather conditions have slowed their operations, but they haven't left, and word is that there are more coming in from California because it's so lucrative here as far as street vendors. But like I said, they are working with local law enforcement, and the health department. Health officials are working together to enforce permitting and inspections and compliance. These unlicensed, unpermitted food carts are unfairly competing against our local restaurants who contribute work, jobs, and taxes. So a lot of them pop up at night. So if they're suspicious of them or they don't see their licensing, I would just give local law enforcement a call and they can take it from there. Also, I had the Chamber of Commerce meeting. There was a comment last week about the Mid-Columbia Ag Hall of Fame being held in Benton County. Plans are to host it in Franklin County next year. It's just the way it worked out as far as finding availability. I spoke with Chief Harmon. The jail is doing great. Great work is being done in there with everyone. Harmon gave great reviews of his staff, and the conclusion is it's running very well, very smoothly. I also had a meeting last week with Larry Leisure about the ICE situation out at the Hapo Center. Had the elected official and department head meetings last week. Met with Mr. Danzel, our county administrator. I want to congratulate him on his work with the juvenile plan that he's put together and presented to the judges. Great work, great job. Also, we received a letter from the Washington State Patrol in response to the letter we wrote them about the I-5 corridor. While they did say that they've been working on it for the past 5 years, so it is something that they are working on. But just wanted to get back and give us, an update of what their efforts and what they're developing. Let's see. While our partners with WSDOT and the Federal Highway Administration are the best positioned to assess long-term solutions, such as roadway design and signage, the Washington State Patrol is committed to taking immediate actions. Our efforts will focus on enhanced enforcement, close coordination with local law enforcement, transparent public communication, and continued driver education. Together, these actions can positively influence drivers' behavior and help us save lives. So, like I said, it is nothing new. That corridor has been dangerous for quite some time, and it's It is something that they're working on, and I think that by bringing it more to the top of the list as far as awareness, that hopefully we can get some changes out there and save some lives. And that concludes my report. Well, I just want to say too that, you know, when we're being taxed to the point of that there's no incentive to work anymore, and you see California just lost Wells Fargo after over 100 years of being there, they're moving out. Oregon just lost Dutch Brothers. They're moving out of state, and they were formed right there in Grants Pass. Can't continue to tax people to the point where there's no incentive to work. And I think that's what we're facing. And then you see the House bills coming out where they want to take control of who we elect for our sheriff, our coroner, and then tell us if we have an issue with the voting that we have to call Olympia. They don't want us calling our local auditor. It's very concerning times. And with that, I see Mr. Baumann has a point he would like to bring forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I incorrectly identified Union as the cross street where this house, set level 3 sex offender house is going in Kennewick. It's on 8th and Edison. And that's the location they're trying to site this house, so I was incorrect in my cross street. And then I just read yesterday that Cargill, that's a 150-year-old company, is leaving their founding home in Minnesota, and because of the unfriendly business climate. And there's a bill right now in the legislature that would make it a jailable offense to not renew your car tabs, because they want to force every dollar they can out of our communities. We voted numerous times for $30 car tabs, and I don't know about you, but my car tabs haven't been $30. Thank you.
In fact, yeah, I have a fleet, and I just went through and cut the majority of them out. I'll sell the rigs before I keep licensing them.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I might
Mr.
have
Administrator.
on an update on the 395. I did
Yes.
want to, since you touched on that, I have spoken to Joe DePinto, our contract lobbyist. He is seeking appropriations for signage and flashing lights and whatever else can be gotten through an appropriation and not having to go through this. So just wanted to give a heads up on that. He feels positive about it.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, also, if I might weigh in on that, the bill for the coroner and the bill for the sheriff, again, I emphasize the fact that we are a representative republic, and these positions need to be elected by the representation of the community. And there's a reason why you have a coroner and a sheriff. The coroner is the only person that can arrest the sheriff. People don't realize, but a coroner is the one that can investigate and arrest a sheriff if there was a homicide and he was involved in it. There's a reason for these positions and why they're elected by the people of the community. And under our Constitution, I've already asked Wes McCart at Eastern Washington Council of Governments to please bring up this to them, that maybe we can bring forth a lawsuit that we're being deprived of our representative republic government in our counties and therefore we can go after this state from the ground, from the top, from the people, we the people, up, as Trump comes down on them from the top down, and we squeeze them, get this state back under control.
Any correspondence this week, Mr. Danzo?
Mr. Chairman, yes, we did. We corresponded with the Superior Court bench. We physically drove over binders for each individual judge so that they could have for their review. In it is the executive summary rationale, pardon me, I'm newly blind, so rationale, findings, and recommended actions for how we could decouple if we wanted to exercise our right under the agreement to reorganize our own juvenile services. In this, there is the executive summary and the ability and the RCWs that are applicable that would allow us to do so. And then we get into, I've included in here the agreement for detention services between Franklin County and Martin Hall, the transportation service agreement between Franklin County and Martin Hall through their subsidiary, CCCS. I've included the offer letter and acceptance of Mr. Vega and his position. And then I've also included the plan from the chief of the Franklin County Correction Center, Chief Harmon, of what they're going to do for processing, handling, so on and so forth. Now that we have Mr. Vega's plan, my intent is to send it as a supplementary over to the judges so that they will have the idea that they know and can have the full confidence, and that there would be no reason whatsoever that we, from beginning of intake all the way to the point where they're transferred to a juvenile detention center, that we have got it covered. And the final thing that I would just say on this is, as I'm preaching the choir here, and probably the prosecuting attorney's office could attest to this, but you're not going to juvenile detention centers unless you've done something pretty wrong this day and age in the state of Washington in the year 2026. So we're not talking about kids that are stealing candy bars or kids that are wanting an extra pair of socks or a plug-in cord at Walmart and trying to kite them, and then they get caught and arrested. You're talking about folks that are a lot of the times into pretty serious stuff. So I just wanted to lay that out there, but I did want to let you know that was corresponded in person with binders for each judge.
Thank you for doing that. Appreciate it. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Marla Marvin with Save Our Shoreline. We've been here once or twice. Our goal is to protect public access and wildlife access to the Columbia River on the Franklin County side. Simple little mission. And we see, of course, all the development, which we're not opposed to, but we would like even to work with developers to say, let's at least make a little path so that people in the development who don't own the front row can allow people to, in their development, to get to the river. We have a couple of exciting things happening. One, a person named Randy Mullen might be interested in working with us on self-landing and protecting that for access. And we're working with a trust company from the west side because they've got expertise. But we want willing sellers. We want people to have access to that wonderful resource, like you all do too. On the reconveyance, that yellow line that goes basically from, I don't know, the concrete plant, I think, on Shoreline Drive, all the way up to probably Ringgold, just because then you start running into Hanford lands. I think that's about where it is. So the yellow line that Franklin County would like, some of that's going to be private land. So I don't know how you're thinking about surveying that, and whether you're interested in creating a parks department, because we would surely love Franklin County to have a parks department. And otherwise, I'm not exactly sure what you're thinking about for all that land. Is it going to be sold off? Is it going to be public land like it is now? I guess those are our questions, and I wonder if we can offer our services for it's kind of taking a scalpel to it instead of just saying we're taking over private land in Franklin County, or I don't know if you've thought that far, but anyway, I don't know if that's 3 minutes, but I want to just, let me see, Parks Department, surveys. I think the survey is going to, be your challenge as far as actual transfer, just because we've worked with the Corps, and they're trying to, the last time they surveyed was like the 1940s, even before the dams were in, and so their surveys are, not so good. I worked for the Department of Energy, and we don't know our boundaries. When they created the National Monument, they took a felt tip, and a felt tip on a map, the boundaries are in question. So I think that probably figuring out what that yellow line is and what that includes will be a challenge and will take some time. And again, we'd like to work with you to continue access for the public to the river. On vaccines, I also am the outgoing president of the Columbia Basin Badger Club. And on Thursday, there's going to be a pro and con or conversation on Zoom on vaccines. So it should be interesting.
All right, thank you.
Thought I'd throw it in. Thanks.
Anyone else in the room for public comment?
Morning, gentlemen. Michelle Andrews. We're now full circle. All of our Bill of Rights were taken in COVID. All of these issues that you're talking about are grievances against our Constitution, Washington State and U.S. Constitution. So instead of trying to ask your permission to do a workshop, I'm just going to bring my First Amendment petition to redress grievances. It will be unabridged. I will send it in advance to restore and actually put in ordinance that someone who takes our Bill of Rights gets a $20,000 fine per incident and at least a year in jail to make us vax, to stop our churches from meeting, and all the other things that happened during COVID. And that will be your First Amendment petition to redress grievances, which means to restore. Now, we've had our exchanges, but we're still on the same side, and I will prove that to you, and you'll be receiving it by email. Mr. McCart is supposed to be doing that with the unconstitutional redress of grievances for the courts to order themselves. That in the Washington State Constitution is enumerated, which means only given to the legislature. They can't give it to another branch of government without amending the Washington State Constitution and many of the other things that you talked about. So please be prepared to read something that is of value, that will put us on firm standing as a constitutional county. It's been done in Florida, and I've done extensive work and research with other patriots that are like-minded that we have not connected with except through the citizens saying, I know my rights are being violated. What can I do about it? So are yours. You are the first line of legislation in our county and to the state, and the state is supposed to listen to us. They are not even going to listen to the initiatives. They're not even going to give it a hearing. They don't want to hear from the people. And this is who we're dealing with. But it is unconstitutional, and the redress of grievances forces compliance. And there's ways to do it locally, per office, and there's ways to do it on the legislative level. And I have that chapter and verse out of the RCWs. But gentlemen, I am going to be sending it to email. I'm giving you a heads up. It is not a threat. It is coming alongside and saying, I'm with you, and I have something you need to hear. And when you hear it, I think we'll be moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Hearing anybody on the phone? Hearing, seeing none. We're going to move to the workshop, Regional Planning Workshop, preparing for the USDA Rural Prosperity Summit, presented by Brian Dansel, Franklin County Administrator.
You're up, mister.
Yep, no, we're just getting it pulled up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the board. Thank you, members of the public. I hope we have some folks watching from home. We have been chosen as a Rural Prosperity Summit meeting place, and the particular location is the Hapo Center in Pasco, Washington. And today's goal is to align our regional voice for maximum impact. And I just kind of on that, and I'll go over this a little bit later. I think one of the reasons I thought this might be a very beneficial workshop is because I used to work in this arena. So I would be the one that would come to these things, and we would listen to all the folks, and we'd bring it back, and I'd work in conjunction with all the partners that I'm about to share with you. And it always stuck out to me that the communities that had the best results were the communities that had a unified voice, and they didn't have 72 different competing issues to try and prioritize. So we've talked about, and I think the 395 meeting that we had at HAPO would be a good jumping point. You start there, maybe like we could have shared, values when it comes to wanting to do something in terms of safety and traffic and commuting and transport in our area. So as I go along, if there's at the end of this, I would love for discussion. I would love for the folks that have skin in the game to step forward, and I'm so proud to see Port of Pasco, TriDeck, BFCOG here. I think it would be a good way to just kind of start this process. Why this summit matters, strategic partnership. Franklin County's been selected as a key partner with USDA Rural Development, and it gives us high-level access that is a direct pipeline to federal decision makers. But not only that, the other issue that happens, and the folks that I just mentioned will be highly familiar with this, is that a lot of times in between continuing resolutions, we really haven't had a real budget in a long time, but there will be pots of money that are just kind of stuck. And if you know how to go after those pots of money, you can be really formidable in your region, especially if you have a unified voice. This high-level access gives us the ability to interface with even cabinet-level secretaries. It's our hope that Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Collins will be here. We're going to have numerous undersecretaries, state leadership from Montana, Idaho, Oregon. Again, this is one of 5 of these that they're putting on throughout the nation, and so we feel really honored, but we also feel that we could have a bigger impact with our partners. This is who's putting it on. So you'll see a lot of familiar faces, but EPA, the U.S. Economic Development Administration, Housing and Urban Development, Franklin County, USDA Rural Development and the Farm Service Agency, the U.S. Small Business Administration, Department of Transportation, and the Department of Veterans Affairs. That's just the beginning, and they're asking for other stakeholders to be there. But boy, when I think of the Tri-Cities, I don't know about you all, but I feel like that those are all areas of emphasis that we could all benefit from. I think that this is going to be a reason, again, that if we could have a unified message, here's where we're having issues. I was thinking of Michelle with BFCOG when it came to the Economic Development Administration. I don't know if there's like a lot of things, if there's a lot of issues where you're like, that just doesn't make sense and it's more work than it is worth trying to get the monies in. Maybe we can talk to them about that and streamline that and make it something that's more doable. I remember doing things like that. Purpose here is to define our purpose. The entire purpose of the Rural Prosperity Summit is to identify and tap into federal resources, right? So why? To maintain and protect existing infrastructure and services, to build and create new opportunities for economic development and housing, and to enhance and improve the efficiency and reach of local county governments. And all of the meetings that I've had locally with people, I've heard everybody say these exact things. I think if we focus on those, I think that's going to be our biggest return on investment.
Talking to your mic.
Pardon me.
It's not coming through.
Not on. This is the 3rd time now. I believe that'll be our biggest return on investment. It's kind of like when you're holding hearings for, are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? So that's the goal of this. The strategy, the power of unified voice, and I know I've already been over this, less is more in these things. Less is more because it'll be, if you can hand them, it's the same thing as when I was in DC, if you can hand them a 1-page white paper, they'll read that. It's interesting, I read a study that was done, and most people are like 10-second, 15-second readers. They are not, going to read a 42-page, 17-point document, but they'll receive a 1-pager and they'll be able to go, we know Colotus needs a sewer system. We need the Tri-City areas needs a cutoff route so that we're not routing everybody through the most dangerous, heavy agricultural area maybe in the western United States. So these are why I think less is more is being, and the unified voice. Focus subject. By limiting the number of priority issues, we prevent our message from getting diluted. And I can just speak from being on the other end of this. And so can David, and so can Carl, everybody here. It's great because you want to have the brainstorming sessions, but to a limit, and things that are real, like things that we can tangibly have an actual chance at getting done. I think that's our biggest nexus there, because a lot of the times, and I'll just be dead on it was like pie in the sky things that we would go into a community, whether it was here, whether it was in Michigan, whether it was in the Midwest, and they'd ask for something that was, $42 trillion. And it's like, I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. So having it be realistic. And we've talked about this before, and I can't stress this enough. I don't even know if folks know how this really works, but before they come here, the way that this works is they'll send an advance team. That advance team is a group of folks that'll come here and see about safety measures and where we're holding it and the route they're going to take to get all of the bigwigs to come in here. And they will already kind of know what the layout of this region is. So if we try to BS them, they've already sent a team in advance to kind of collect information. And so I just want that out there because that's something that I feel is important because there's no BSing these folks. We really got to come with receipts and with our information. And I'm just proud to be able to do that and happy to be able to do that on behalf of Franklin County. I want to invite the region though. I want to invite Benton County. I want to invite the sheriff's office. I want to invite the Connell chief of police. I want to invite the port and all these different entities because you know what I've found, and I've only been here a year, and I'm reminded of that quite a lot too. But you know what I found? I found that like on 98% of the issues, everybody agrees. And maybe it's just me being wrong and not talking to the right people. Everybody wants safe infrastructure. They don't like travel in the Blue Bridge because they know that there might be an accident. They want to be able to, these local governments, to be able to, as it goes back to the shoreline conversation, to provide, I think, the ample recreation opportunities while balancing the needs of a growing community that has to have a tax base. And so I think this is it. I think this is where we are able to not only talk about those issues, but tap into some of those funds that we were talking about. So we've talked about this, identifying common regional issues, infrastructure. I don't think I need to hit on that anymore because we've been there. Economic stability, support for agriculture and small business growth. I think this is where it's a real potential that we're going to have a sidebar conversation where all of the USDA representatives move into a separate room potentially and they talk with farmers and ranchers. And they say, hat in hand, what can we be doing here now that would help you be able to be more successful? And I'll tell you, there's a lot of value in that. There's a lot of value in being able to know. Sometimes it's just an example of people not knowing. And I was just on the phone last night as part of this planning meeting with the chief of the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and she tells me Washington State is one of the most underutilized states in the entire United States for tapping into their programs, some of which all goes towards protecting your private property. And so I think just even an education component is important here. Housing, availability and affordability for our rural workforce. That combined with the fact that everything has a housing component now, being able to tap into the expertise of housing and urban development, I think to be able to understand fully what the agenda is and how we can get there is imperative. You know, a lot of times it's a guessing game, so you don't really know exactly what your final goal is because they won't just come out and say it. I liken it to people that won't necessarily put things. A good example is like a good planner. Sometimes they won't put things in writing until you've provided the full plan so that they can give themselves some wiggle room in case you're not telling the truth, right? So the ability to interface with these folks in just a completely upfront and honest way about this issue, I think is going to be extraordinarily important. And then government capacity, technology and staffing needs for county operations. We all have those struggles and challenges. The more rural outlying areas, the Mesas, the Colotuses, the Connells, they struggle more with that particular challenge. And that's what I like to say. I think that with economic development coming in, rural development coming in, I want to try to triage some of these areas. So here's our next steps and our timeline. I have found that these are usually not well received if you make them into a 47-hour dissertation on like what we should be doing, but giving a brief glimpse and then letting folks think on this. But this is my idea, and you tell me if you think there's some fallacy in the thinking. The road to March 26th. I think that we should have an open discussion right now and discuss if you feel comfortable, or if you feel more comfortable waiting and having a meeting in between. We plan on having a meeting in February over this also so that we can try to refine our message. That kind of falls into the second bullet point that we were going to have one more planning meeting. And then at that point, our action item would be to review our specific department or areas top 3 needs list. And I think this is just and again, I want to preface this by saying, this is my recommendation, having been a former Northwest director of all of the USDA programs. And so I think that this is beneficial. And I think that this is something that we can do together, and that we can show that while sometimes it's newsworthy to talk about where we have differences, that there are just so much more that we share. And I think that this is an example of that. So with that, gentlemen, if you had any questions for me, I was going to invite folks from maybe BFCOG, maybe the Port of Pasco, I don't know, anybody, if they wanted to speak to it, or if they want to think about this and get back when we have our next meeting next month. But this is my PowerPoint presentation that I wanted to deliver to you. I'll take any questions at this time.
Questions for Mr. Danzel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Brian, for all your hard work on this. Just a little bit of comments, don't really have a question necessarily yet. Mr. Robitel, Mr. Mayor, for your benefit, when Kirk Pearson was here, he's the Washington director of the U.S. Department of Ag. When he was here and did his tour, when we left Colotis after meeting with you and we started our way back the Pasco-Colotis Highway, we went to Levy Landing Park and just gave him, in a part of that tour, was a big part of where this grew out of. And so we have Kirk Pearson to thank for all the hard work on this. And I asked the question, I said, how is the mayor supposed to figure out how to put a sewage plant in Colotis? What does that look like? I know how hard you work. I know how roughly what your time looks like. I know what my time looks like, and we don't have an unlimited amount of time. And so we had that conversation on that drive of how do you do this? What does that look like? I can't magically come up with extra time, and I know that you can't either. And so I really, really appreciate Kirk putting all the effort and time in that he has, and in talking with him, kind of what he has described to some level. I know that the plan is for the directors of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana to be here to this, and so it's going to be more than just a quick 2-hour meeting where that it's a feel-good thing. He's actually designing this with real meat in the meal, so to speak, for us to really have opportunity to interface with people and guide people, with some of the staffing to be able to help us walk through these. I don't know how to build a sewer treatment plant. Takes a lot of time and effort to do that, and they'll be able to help provide that. And so in my imagination, what this is going to look like a little bit, and we've discussed it to some level, is in the morning there may be something of a panel where that people can come up and ask questions, and it will be a little bit of an education component to that so that the audience can kind of have an understanding of what that looks like, and then maybe have some, as Brian described, some breakout sessions where that, in the morning, if you learned about it but didn't talk, maybe in the afternoon you can go talk to the USDA or U.S. Department of Transportation or the Department of Veterans Affairs. And so just really appreciate what Kirk has been doing on this, and Brian, you too, all the effort you've put into this. As we've discussed this, Brian and I will be meeting with Kirk, looking at it. So for our regional partners, I would like this to be a regional hosted event while it's happening here in Franklin County. I think that this is a region that gets the opportunity to host this, and there may be need for us to help sponsor a component of it. Legally, the U.S. Department of Ag can't feed us a meal. They can't provide us coffee in the morning, and there may be need for different ones of us from counties, ports, cities to host different components of it. I don't know what that looks like. We're trying to work and learn. This is new to me. Brian has a lot of experience with it, so we're trying to figure out what that looks like so that we can put on a first-class event where that our community can benefit from some of the opportunities that are available. So thank you for your hard work on that, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. Clyde, do you have any, or Mr. Deere, questions?
Yeah, just one thing here. I wanted to know the time, but I see it's on that up there, 9 to 4. But it'll be a meeting and then we'll be doing some traveling, correct? Is that included in the 9 to 4?
Kind of what Mr. Pearson had communicated to me is that this is on March 26th, which is a Thursday.
Oh, 26, yeah.
And he wanted to potentially maybe either the day after, the day before, go around and actually revisit these places, and this time with like actual people that could help triage.
Okay.
You know, last time he came and he was able to do what he could on behalf of rural development, but this time I think it'd be like, well, let's see what we can do with rural development, economic development, and the Small Business Administration, for example, like when it pertains to the Mesa grocery store. And I think that what we'll see is that there will be pockets of funding that we just didn't realize that if we use local leverage, we can get those dollars into our community. And people like Michelle are experts at that, and the TRIDEC. And anyway, so that's why I'm with Commissioner Baumann. I think this is a regional thing.
Yes.
We feel honored. I feel honored to be part of the planning group to help plan this whole thing out. But that's why we wanted to have this. We want everybody to benefit from it.
And then another thing was on the affordable housing, and I think that my fellow commissioners agree with me on this, that affordable housing in the state of Washington is an oxymoron because of the permitting process. And I just saw anything on the news last night about California and where that fire ravaged that area. They're not able to build their houses because they're waiting on the permitting process of the state. And this state does not let affordable housing occur. And so we're at odds again with the state on affordable housing and trying to get people housing. And it's an oxymoron in this state, as it is in Oregon and California. Go ahead.
On that, I think, I agree with you. I think that there have been two movements in the past couple weeks that'll help that. The first was the executive order sign that disallows like the Black Rocks from buying multiple family houses and making it part of their portfolio. I don't know if everybody saw that, which I think is a huge win for families to be able to afford a home again, which was at one time the hallmark of successful America, right, is home ownership. Is how many people are in homes with families. So I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. I think the other part of it too is there were comments made here today about Florida. Florida was the first state that completely got rid of their Growth Management Act. It was called Smart Growth. It's how I modeled our bill up north to get us out. So some of the folks that they worked with in doing that was USDA, because USDA, through NASS and their Ag Statistics program, are able to provide information that worked against them, because usually, and Jeff and Wes can attest to this, they use what's called best available science. So I don't think it's even just for funding things. I think that we could bounce ideas off people here that might have experience in other areas of the world that, hey, I don't know if you've tried this way before. And I think that plus the networking, Kirk Pearson thinks there's going to be 1,000 to 1,500 people here. So I mean, this is going to be a big thing. This is going to be a big thing for the city of Pasco when it comes to hotel motel tax, our restaurants, everything. But more so than that, this is going to be a big thing that we have to be able to get something out of this. And that's why, again, I've sat on these where they worked, and we got money rolling into people. Soap Lake got a brand new car. I have pictures delivering it with Kirk Pearson the last time around, and we were able to get a fire truck to a couple of different municipalities and this and that. Never anything like this, where you're bringing all these people. Economic development just doesn't travel. They just don't travel anywhere. So to get them out and about, and same with SBA, by the way, I think it's just a really good thing, and I think it's important for us to take advantage of it.
And I just want to say thank you to Brian, because the only reason we're able to obtain this kind of meeting with all of these agencies is because of you. And so I put you on the hook, and you were out of the room on the shoreline reconveyance, and I said, I've asked him to back away from putting Dan Newhouse's name on it because of the conflict between him and Trump, and to use you for a contact back there to make this happen. The House has already passed it when Doc Hastings was in office, but nothing's transpired. So maybe I put you on the hook as maybe the lead guy for a contact back there to make this happen.
Chairman, are you telling me, or Mr. Commissioner, not Chairman
Yeah,
anymore, and I
you-
so
this is the chairman.
apologize.
I'm just a
Old
member.
habits die hard. Are we naming this after Brian Danzel? No.
Yes, we are.
Thank you for your report and all the hard work that you've done, and we are very fortunate to have you here to orchestrate this for us. Moving on, is there anyone in the room for public comment that only related to the workshop item? Yes, please come forward.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, we're excited. Brian, actually Commissioner Bauman sent it to me first, and then we talked to Brian about it. Yesterday, we totally agree this is a great opportunity for all of us. I just wrote down a couple notes, and then maybe we could have a meeting before your next board meeting, you know, where some of the local partners could get together with the port, BFCOG, the city, you know, locally on some ideas. But I just wrote down a couple things. Rural development and HUD have some really good housing programs that back in Idaho, we had a developer out of Hayden Lake that did a really good job with them. Instead of like Section 8 housing, which is where they actually give you federal money to lower the cost of housing, you build market rate multifamily housing units that have a sliding scale based on your income. So some people are paying market rate, some people are paying a lesser rate, and it's funded through tax credits. So the developer gets the tax credits they can sell off to companies that need a tax credit or themselves, and then they maintain it for 20 years under that. So I think both rural development and HUD have those programs, and so to be able to talk to them about some specific things like that, I think would be a real boost for us. Opportunity zones, I totally understand and agree with you on the state interface with our local government, with federal government. But State Department of Commerce, the governor evidently of every state has been asked about how did opportunity zones work. This is from the first Trump administration. You know, we've got a couple here in Pasco, and it's based on poverty rates and census blocks. And so a lot of the North County would qualify, I believe, but I'm not aware of any investment that we had from private investors that were taking advantage of opportunity zones. And so the state's asking us, as your associate development organization, partnership with Franklin County, to give them feedback on how did they work. And evidently the federal government, I think, is looking at redoing those. I think Department of Treasury under IRS administers the financial side of it, but I would assume that RD or EDA is, you know, involved in administration. So that might be a good topic for us. You know, can we get some more local investment in our opportunity zones and kind of refurbish them and maybe even get maybe some support from the state? We'll see. On the ag side, I think there's been a general conversation about could we increase dairy production, especially with Dairy Gold here? Could we get them a shorter haul, things like that? I think it would be real interesting from both a local grower and landowner perspective, and then maybe federal programs from USDA. The port is the leader on this ag symbiosis. You know, they've gotten some state money to take a look at. Stephen and Adam have both gone back to Denmark to say, how do we bring in co-locations of ag processing with other industrial processes and share things like heat and energy to kind of lower everybody's costs? You know, look at waste streams that could actually be put into value added. I think that would be a good topic, you know, and maybe I'm not want to put Stephen on the spot, but I think the port's really the expert here. Maybe there'd be a good dialogue with them from the feds to see, is there something that we could do specific to Franklin County and to the basin down here? And then I just thought of this, and Commissioner Bauman invited us to a meeting that you guys had with MISA last year, I think it was, or the year before. And then thinking about the discussion about the corridor and, you know, really as we go north into Franklin County, that ag, transportation, and really the interface of the history of our county. And you know, my great-grandfather served in the legislature around the last turn of the century here in Franklin County, but then I kind of grew up on the Palouse and back and forth in Idaho. And I'll just say that all of our small towns, it doesn't matter if it's Mesa or Connell or Clotis or any other ones, are faced with the same thing, and that is it takes less people to farm than it did when they were founded 150 years ago. And so the reason that town was built is gone, and those jobs aren't going to come back. And so just thinking about that, about Franklin County's position within that and that interface in between our population center here in Pasco and those small towns, you know, could we do enough research between now and March to kind of stand up some robust discussions like how do we bring jobs back to our small towns? How do we revitalize those towns so that maybe they have enough population or tax base where they could put in their own sewer at some time in the future? But we know the growth trend isn't good for those small towns, and that discussion that we had about MISA was a really good one, and it just reminded me of a town I grew up in called Latah that has about 30 people in it, and there's hundreds of those towns in the West that we all face the same thing. And so, you know, since this is going to be a regional discussion for the gathering, maybe a topic like that could be something that we could really build some good discussions around, and you know, maybe get some good brainstorming. So I wanted to throw those out. I was just thinking about it. This discussion was really, really good, and we look forward to working on some of those or any ideas as we work forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I appreciate, Carl, what you're describing there, and I would ask that certainly that you help educate us on some of these things. You're a former county commissioner yourself. You're aware of the broad number of topics that we need to become experts on the day we take office, and it's not true. I can't become an expert the day I take office, and so your assistance in helping empower us with information as we lead into this, and then, you know, on that day, I don't know yet what it looks like. We're going to be meeting with Kirk, but would ask for your help in preparing for that. Thank you.
So at this point, we'll open it up to public comment. If you have a public comment on the workshop-related items, please come forward, state your name. 3 minutes.
So yes, following up on Kay Lotus and expressed concern about energy and power in Franklin County, we are at the max. Kay Lotus has a gas turbine. Okay. It had that gas turbine puts out almost as much as a turbine in the dam. My concern is that going to the boat races, I think they'll go away if we don't watch what we're doing in this group and everything concerning the fact that we couldn't even chop down the weeds in the bushes to see the boat races on the Franklin side. So when you're negotiating with the tribes and all these different folks, I think that ought to be weighed in. That is a huge economic engine here. And with respect to getting the Elon Musk telecom, I'm not saying it right, I did express that was not included when the COG was here before. That should be a redundancy on top of the contracted Big 5 911 so that we have it to move forward in the future. We have both, because it's not the best from what I understand, and you can do the research for the 911 frequency at this time. So I'm not disputing the cost benefit would be better. But we have a Big 5 that has a 911 needed, required, can't talk to a policeman around the corner for backup if we don't have. And it was a very expensive purchase and tax-wise for our property owners. It should have been on sales tax, but it was not. So I do welcome these coordinations, but it has to include energy. And so far, our state says we can't have gas power. Well, that is a violation of negotiating carbon credits with another foreign nation, Canada. And I believe that Climate Commitment Act was done under the Biden administration, who violated that constitutional deferment that a state could negotiate with Canada. This is wrong. Again, I'm coming back to constitutional issues regarding this summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Michelle Holt with the Benton Franklin Council of Governments. We appreciate the invitation to be part of the conversation, and now that we have a little bit of context of exactly what's going to happen, who's going to be at the table, we can apply a little more thought to what strategically are the most important things for us to talk about. But what I would like to offer is that anything that we can do to help with facilitation of those earlier discussions, bringing people together, the mention of just understanding that we may have 1,000 to 1,500 people in town, are we communicating with the cities to make sure that they're prepared for this event as well? So beyond just the coordination of the event itself, but also the trickle out for that. So we definitely want to be part of helping to facilitate in whatever way we can to support that. I did get an email message about the event yesterday from the economic development districts for the state that they had received information from Director Pearson. And they did indicate that there would be a resource type fair encouraging people from the multi-states to come and meet with the agencies. So again, we are going to have some influx from folks around the region, and we want to support that effort as well. One topic that is top of mind for the COG is long-range transportation planning and the metro loop connecting an outer loop between the two counties. There are multiple multi-million-dollar transportation investments that would be required to complete that for a long-range growth scenario for transportation. So being ready to have some of those conversations. A piece of that does have to do with safety as well. So the 395 connection, bypass on Franklin County side, some of those things would be an important conversation. But I'd like to go back and put some more thought into especially our agency relationships for DOT, EDA, EPA specifically, since we partner with those. I do have an outstanding question that I can't speak to whether it is a communication and availability issue with EDA or whether it's an us problem. But I do know that we have not had a significant EDA funding made in our two counties since about 2012. Which, for the amount of money that runs through the EDA and the number of communities we have here. But what I don't know is that because we are not submitting applications for review or something else? But that is a long dry spell for federal funding programs that have a significant amount of money in investment. So definitely something we want to talk about.
Just a thought for you, Michelle, as we develop this thought process and idea. When we talk about the ring road or the bypass highway, as a lot of people know it, if we were able to, I think as Brian described to us, it's really, really important for us to have a unified voice. And if we were to be able to describe the economic impact and the safety value of having a ring road, and if we were able to brainstorm that a little bit at our next meeting, maybe. But if we had a ring road that left 395, out at somewhere at Self Landing ish, and went into North Richland, and then went in and provided a connection in West Richland to 82, the value that would have for West Richland, Franklin County, the city of Kennewick, by not, having all of the, people go across to 240 to avoid the traffic on 182, and just to have that bigger conversation, and to say, look, U.S. Department of Transportation, we need, this is going to be a $500 million project to get this all done. We need your assistance with it. We don't need it all today, but in the next 6 years, you're putting it together a transportation system master plan, for lack of a better way of describing it, of what our regional needs are. And if we were able to, to tell the U.S. Department of Transportation, and kind of the goal is to have the directors of the local states. They're going to do this 5 times across the U.S. And if we're able to this is the first one. Yeah, this is the first. They're going to start here. If we were able to tell them that we are a unified voice, we have 5 cities, 7 cities, and 2 counties, 3 counties, whatever it is. To finish the Highway 12 project, Phase 8 to Walla Walla. That's a huge number, and there's a unified voice between now and March 26 would be really, really neat, and we keep piling stuff on Brian's shoulders, and so if there's others that are willing to kind of take a lead on what that unified local voice is, that would be really helpful.
for my part, being a new guy down here, Michelle's been awesome to work with. I really appreciate you, and I think that I would second her comments, and it's, don't feel picked on, because I've had that same experience with economic development everywhere, so it's hard to get them here. Since we've got them here, I just would like to say thank you. Thanks for being available for it. Thank you, gentlemen, for being available to be able to, because you got looped into being the ones that intro this thing. They asked if I wanted to say a few words. I said no, but I know 3 gentlemen that will. So anyway, but no, long story short, we've got so many areas that we can work on together. I would love it, Michelle. Like maybe we can even, Teresa, work on weekly working up to, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I'm all in.
We're happy to. Yeah.
Okay. One last thing that I wanted to explain that's a really big win for us. David Matthews is going to be here. David Matthews oversees every single one of the state directors for USDA Rural Development. They got rid of the undersecretary position under the Biden administration, so he's called some kind of he works in the office of the Secretary of Agriculture. And I just say this is not saying one way or the good or bad or the other, but I'll just say the truth. When I went to work there, when it was under Democrat control, it was called the cage, the office of the secretary. When it was under Republican control, it was called the front porch. And I thought that said a lot about what was more inviting.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Danzel. I'd like to welcome Stephen McFadden to take part of the discussion.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Bull in a China shop, as always. Certainly, thank you for putting this together and inviting the local agencies to participate. Port Pasco would be proud to lend you strength, assistance, sweat equity, elbow grease, whatever you need to pull this off on the front end and the planning. We have received federal funding for projects. We're currently preparing to start a rail construction project funded by the CRISI program through the Federal Rail Administration. In 2018 through 2020, we received EDA funds for FEMA stormwater management and did a substantial stormwater project, about a $7 million project at the Big Pasco Industrial Center warehouse complex. They are really challenging projects when you get into the federal obligation for funds and contracting, but they're really critical, especially for gap funding. I hope that all the cities and towns come to the table and participate in this. I just had a conversation with the mayor of Connell yesterday, and they have some state funding and state loan for a new well in Connell, but there's a significant dollar gap for them to be able to actually do that project. This gathering in March could literally be a path for them to be able to move forward, to put that new well in. And if they're going to welcome new industry that needs high volume water, that new well is critical. So this is an excellent program that you're bringing forward, and we appreciate the opportunity to help you out. Love to talk about our projects, but also would just love to see the region be a winner in terms of state funding and growth opportunities in Franklin County. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Something that I don't want us to forget about is this is literally 1/5 of the United States is being invited to this. So as we think about this, I think we shouldn't forget about our regional partners, and I mean we can go quite a ways out to you know, I don't want to be selfish, but I just want everything as far as here. And if we have a way to work with the ports all the way, I mean the ports of Umatilla and across the river that way impact us immensely. Port of Walla Walla, all of our ports, all of our cities, our counties in this entire region benefit from stuff that happens here and vice versa. And so I think that we have just a tremendous opportunity, and I'm really excited about it.
I agree. Port of Pasco collaborates with the Port of Walla Walla, the Port of Kennewick, the Port of Benton, and then typically a number of other ports around the state, and I currently serve as the co-chair of the State Ports Association's Economic Development Committee. The other piece I wanted to point out is this comprehensive economic development strategy that BFCOG leads has a very robust roster of projects from all the public agencies that participated in the SEDS. That's a really good outline for projects like what the port has on its strategic plan wish list. And we did update our strategic plan about 1 year ago, so we have a number of major economic development oriented infrastructure projects on our drawing board as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If I could, real quick.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
It's interesting, my email, my phones are blowing up of people that must be watching online saying, what about this project, what about that project? Some from here in the audience, about 3 or 4 from outside the audience. One thing I wanted to give a little heads up on, that was likely, I'm guessing that some of the folks did get it from USDA. We had kind of a multifaceted approach to how we get the word out, kind of from, we were going to meet in the middle, like from local government to the federal government. We're going to try to get out and expand to as many people as possible. So that might be why you got that. And then just a thank you for everybody for doing that. But yeah, like I say, literally probably a half dozen ideas of things like, oh my gosh, if we had known, that this was going to happen. How come we're just getting word of this now? I do want to say one thing. This was originally planned before the government shutdown. And then it was a question mark of whether we were going to even have it. And Commissioner Bauman's right. If it wasn't for Kirk Pearson, we wouldn't have had it. And so I appreciate him salvaging it. And so the short time frame and why I would think if it's possible, and maybe what we do is maybe I just send out an email and say it doesn't have to be weekly or at a specific time, but if there's things that pop up, we could have we have like a Microsoft Teams chain that we keep going where people can add stuff. Would that be something that would be, let's do that. I think that works better than, it's hard to get everybody like at 10 o'clock on a Thursday to be able to set aside 2 hours, but if something pops into your brain, you could type that in at home even. Sound good? Perfect.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I just want to say I think we need to heed the words of Brian's first statement. We don't want to overwhelm them when they get here with all of these ideas. We need to hone in on a few and make this successful. If we throw too much at them, we may get nothing. So I think basic necessities is safe travel, water, housing. We don't want to get carried away with too many things. We want to hone in on a few and very important things and get something to happen here in Franklin County as well as the region. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Wes McCart, Economic Planning and Development, Franklin County.
Thank you, Commissioners. Just some thoughts and listening to the group here and wanting to listen to what comes out of this meeting as well. You gentlemen all know my take on the Growth Management Act. I think it was the worst thing the state had ever done, and I find myself stumbling over my words here, right? But every day, trying to make things work here in the county that one thing or another from the state mandated Growth Management Act steps in our way. But that being said, I think while we're updating our comprehensive plan and development regulations right now, this is a great nexus to find out, are there projects being proposed that I haven't even heard about that we need to consider in our comprehensive plan and development regulations, be it zoning or whatever. And, I've had lots of conversations with Stephen from the port, and, quite frankly, one of my big things that I've watched here, trying to come up with different ways to bring in economic development to the county and the area, is just the lack of water and sewer infrastructure that we have. We're depending on the city of Pasco to provide that in, right here in some of the industrial pieces. Do we put it in the urban growth area? Can we justify doing that? So, and you look at Colotus, I was lucky enough to go around all day with Kirk Pearson when he was here, whether it be Mesa or Colotus or Connell or any of our little towns, or looking at what the port needs for infrastructure, whether that be roads are part of the infrastructure, but between roads, water, and sewer, I think that should be one of our focus points. Brian, just as a suggestion, because I run across that, I'm going to say almost on a daily basis in the department, and trying to work with different people to bring things in. Whether it would be dairies, bringing a dairy in, what do we do to mitigate for the road impacts? And, it's highly, I find it difficult to do. So I don't have an answer, but those are of the top of my mind I want to share. So
I would just say that as Director of Planning, Building, and Economic Development, I would hope that you're on the chain with us, and that would be my recommendation, is then we'll capture it all there. I think we can prioritize it like these gentlemen have talked about, but I agree with you. I know Colotus agrees with you.
I appreciate several of the things you said as Carl was talking about, the different ideas. When he talked about dairies, my immediate thought was we've expanded in the not too distant past a couple of different dairies, giving them opportunity, but it's more than just giving them a head increase in their conditional use permit. There's, what I wrote down here is, dairy increase in production. We need that for the largest milk production plant in the world, as far as I've been able to understand, is here in our community now, but they need milk to make that thing operate properly. They need additional dairy infrastructure. So that trickles down to, we need the roads. So our one dairy that has received their conditional use permit, they need to improve the road that serves that. And so there's multiple levels of thing that we need to happen in order for those things to happen. And
that's why I wanted to re-emphasize the roads, gentlemen. I will have another project that I can't get into the detail of because it's going to be a closed record hearing. However, I have other dairy proposals that are in front of us, and the biggest roadblock for them has been, one is the water. We're pretty fortunate with the irrigation system through Skibbed to be able to supply water as we need for the dairies. However, the roads are a huge stumbling block. And as I, talk with the port, I talk with some others, a lot of times these projects coming in, manufacturing, whatever it might be, I need something bigger than a septic tank, but I don't need this great big huge large on-site septic system. So how do I get tied to a regional sewer? Those are the types of discussions, and how can maybe some of these agencies help us find a path forward to doing that without necessarily relying on the city and the city residents to do that. How can we help ourselves?
Yeah, I appreciate that. As I think about that, it was some residential developers that working with the city of Pasco that put together an LID, a local improvement district, that was already well into the planning stage. And because that was already into the planning stage, that was what allowed the city to say yes to Dairy Gold. And so if that hadn't already been underway, we couldn't even have said yes to them. And so I think about that as you describe needing the infrastructure, the big trunk line sewer, the big trunk line water, and the capacity back at the treatment plant. The city of Pasco is talking about $160 to $200 million rebuild of the 1940s Butterfield treatment plant, and some of that kind of stuff is very real. $160 million is a lot of money to take out of our community for one project, and if there's opportunity from some of these organizations to help fund some of this kind of stuff, would be pretty powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any more discussion, Mr. Danzel? Anybody else you'd like to call up front?
Mr. Mayor?
Michael Robitel, Mayor, City of Colotus. In regards to the idea about the sewer system, it was discussed after the meeting with Director Proctor, Commissioner Baldwin, and right now it's kind of a catch-22. Some like the idea of it, some don't. As Franklin County as a whole, as well as the cities of Franklin County, we are going through the comprehensive plan updates right now. Found out because of the fact of being landlocked, it's just trying to figure out logistics of it, plus the fact of having some floodplain going through the city itself. I know one of the other ideas that was brought up was reintroducing Lake Colotis by bringing in water flow back into it too, to create an additional water source and also recreational opportunities for the region and the county.
I think that it's good. This has got the creative juices flowing for all of us, and what if and how. Like Stephen talked about, the city of Connell's been working on water and putting in a big well that they have been working on for years and years and years. And this opportunity might be a nexus to get that completed, which then they have the opportunity to say yes. And I don't know about Colotis. I think this is exciting that we have the opportunity to ask the questions.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do know we have one resident right now that is actually going through septic issues right now. I know it was something that was done through Wes's office, or with assistance of Wes's office, to see about expanding combining 2 lots into one, because to expand their septic system. So I know if we were to add in the actual sewer system, we wouldn't have to worry about any issues like that. It's just like saying there again, it's the logistics of where would we put the wastewater treatment plant, especially with us being in a low-lying area and having some of the city there within the floodplain.
Yeah, and I think that's where we get the experts to come in and help. And you don't have the time, I don't have the time, but the need is still there.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe there's opportunity.
You can imagine that most of the USDA programs are Midwest-centric. That's where a lot of the egg production, and California-centric to a degree. But yes, I agree with you. I think that where there's a will, there's a way. And so kind of the issue too is that we've been working on, and this doesn't apply necessarily to Colotis, but it would to MESA, is trying to get back land that the Department of Natural Resources had. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but the big point is that the communities just like Colotis throughout the entire Midwest, they've gone on and did this, and what Commissioner Baumann said, they'll bring in the experts. They'll bring in the experts about knowing how to do it and the most economical way of doing it. And then the most important part is where to find the money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I look forward to, yours is kind of I have a personal soft spot for it, so it's one that I've talked to Kirk Pierce, I know we all have, about Colotis a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised within the next couple of years if you had a sewer system in Colotis.
Mm-hmm. I know
Completely.
Yeah, I know one of the things that I did for running to be mayor, because initially I was appointed mayor, is I put in the idea about us bringing in businesses, stores, and stuff like that, especially with us being on one of the main routes to go to and from Pullman to Wazoo, to like the home football games, home basketball games. Because right now, we don't have any stores. So our nearest stores primarily in Connell, and that's 16 miles. Well, look at the weather that we've had, all the icy roads. Would it be feasible for us to drive in weather conditions like today with the ice or the snow? And would we be able to sustain ourselves even without that store? So it's trying to bring in even the store. So even the Small Business Administration to maybe say, is there funding to help with like bringing in a store or help with that stuff as well?
And if I might add, Mr. Mayor, this is the septic system, something that I worked with Dwayne Davidson years ago. We were looking at this, but the whole problem here is the unity of Clotis. I think you need to have a town hall meeting and talk to the people and sell this before we get there, so that we have unity of Clotis behind the fact that they need a septic tank system, because division will kill this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Point of personal privilege. Having been a kid that grew up on Highway 21 South that runs directly into Colotis, It's the end of the line, and up where I'm at's the top of the line. I've always had a special connection. Plus, when you would combine with Lynn and Ritzville, you'd always kick us off the field in football.
Well, now for our school, which is 40 students right now, they're combining with North Franklin School District, so it's basically they're within Connell for athletics.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yep. I know that's one thing they're working on right now, the school too, is upgrading their HVAC system. So I know they've got a grant for, and they're also looking at, because of the fact that security being an issue with all the recent events of putting in like a perimeter fence and maybe like a check-in, check-out system too as well. So I know this would be something else to help. I know they've got some funding for it, but this might be a good opportunity for them to even get additional funding or to brainstorm off of those.
I think the job fair, so to speak, style that they're planning to have could be helpful for all of those different questions about could you. Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Danson. No.
Haven't been there before. I've seen it go one or two ways, like I said, and this is why it's so sad to me when it goes the wrong way. I've seen this whole entire thing happen, and the big ask was a four-wheeler with a snowplow on it. We can't let that be the thing here. And then I've seen on opposite ends, they've asked for administrative buildings and gotten 0% interest loans and grants to be able to build. So I just want to keep that in mind. We can go get a gator with a snowplow on it, or we can go build something here, and that's something that I encourage people to think big on these things because they're wanting to come here. This gentleman, we got the right person in Director Pearson that resurrected this thing when they didn't think it was going to happen after the government shut down. Now, because of this, all 5 are now rescheduled to go back on. So this is a very important thing to us here. And I will be done talking now.
I would agree with you wholeheartedly, Brian, and I do appreciate all of your hard work in this and your expertise. But yes, we need to narrow it down and keep it direct so we don't lose their attention and blow us off. So, thank you. Do you have anybody else you want to bring forward for discussion or?
Kind of what I'd like to do, Commissioner Mullen, Mr. Chairman, is work with Teresa, reach out, try to have a weekly check-in. What we used to do in the federal government is we would, on purpose, make it short.
Yes.
15 minutes. We call them stand-ups because people got tired of standing up and would want to go back to their office and sit down. I think we do short meetings weekly. I'm going to get together a list out of this. I'm going to rewatch this meeting, try to narrow it down to what I think I have heard here are the most important issues, and then kind of like I was talking about with we'll get a string conversation going that we can add to it, and the people that are all nodding their heads are the folks that I'll be relying on. To be honest with you, to help really drive home, hey, what is it that you guys are looking for? Is there a synergy with what Franklin County's looking for? And again, I just want to say this too. This will be my final remarks. I know that there's been a lot of turnover and a lot of growth and a lot of things that have taken place in the Tri-Cities over a very short amount of time. I often joke I was a golf professional here. And my wife called me one time. I think I was going to Richland, and she goes, "Where are you?" And I said, "I don't know anymore. It's growing so much that I'm either in Richland or Kennewick." I want this to be the first step into a whole entire century of lightness when it comes to the Tri-Cities. I think if we've got so many great people and so many great minds, and it's only when you shelter and kind of dig a line in the sand and hunker in that we're not able to take all these great minds and produce some really great results. And that gets me excited. I think that we've had enough of the time, and this is just my opinion, of folks always siloing information or worried about their own. What this tells me here and what this opportunity presents here is a reset, I believe, on how we've done business, not just in Franklin County, but regionally when it comes to reaching out to partners, working with people, trying to leverage all of our insights and our incredible talent that I believe that we do possess into making the best possible Tri-Cities, regardless if you live on one side of the river or the other. That's my final comment.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Danzel, and thank you for leading this. I think this is a great opportunity and look forward to working together to get some major accomplishments done. So
Mr.
with
Chairman.
that, I want to say thank you for all the participants that came forward today to participate in this part of the discussion. Really do appreciate your work. The chair recognizes Mr. Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One organization that we have not spoken of is the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs will be here. There's another opportunity. Just as a little bit of information, the veterans, the Tri-City Veterans Stand Down that happens in November, they have outgrown their location, and so I've been talking with Christopher Dare, the director of the Columbia Basin Vet Center, about where could we have that. We've been discussing the Hapo Center, so I got him in touch with the Hapo Center folks, and they're having those discussions. They've talked to Ben Franklin Transit about them being helpful with that. That event, they anticipate potentially between 1,000 and 1,500 people to be at that event. Most of you here know Bob Parr, a veteran that works very hard on behalf of veterans. I did have the opportunity to talk to him the other day, and I said, is there any way that we could get the Army to bring a Black Hawk and set it down on the lawn in front of the Hapo Center for this veteran stand-down event? So I don't know. That's a question that I have started working through, so we're going to see if there's a possibility of that. But to have the veterans stand down there, and with the Veterans Administration coming, think that we should think about our veterans and what opportunities are there with them coming to town. And I don't know yet if the director of veterans will be there, but I think there's an opportunity there we should evaluate as well. So Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And again, just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming today and taking part of the discussion, and I look forward to continuing the discussions. So at this point, I will adjourn the workshop part of the meeting, and we will move on to executive session. Is there a need for executive session today?
A very brief one, just a very brief, maybe like a 10-minute executive session under the proper statute that deals with potential litigation.
Okay, 4230, 110, 1I.
I'm going to call it 15 minutes, let's call it.
15 minutes. Is there a need for a break before then?
5 minutes.
We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back at 11:16 and go into executive session until 11:31.
And just so the record's clear, it'll be myself, Mr. Briggs, Mr. Danzel, and the board, and the clerk of the board will be in that executive session.
All right. Thank you. We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We're going to go back into executive session for approximately 5 minutes. Thank you. The time is now 11:32.
10, Stephen.
The mics are on?
We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We're going to go back into executive session for approximately 10 minutes. We'll be out at 11:48. We just can't get Rocky to shut up. He just keeps talking.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's like Rocky Balboa.
Right.
In fact, when Harmon comes in, I always want to do Hail to the Chief. And I always want to go,
So we've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. Is there any more business for the good of the county? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned.
Teresa, I'm going to leave my computer here for a minute, and then it's okay if I come back. Thank you.